The restaurant buzzed with the quiet murmur of weeknight diners, soft music playing beneath the gentle clinking of glasses against porcelain. Candlelight flickered from the center of each table, casting warm shadows against deep wooden booths and navy linen tablecloths. It wasn't a five-star establishment, but it was the nicest place Mia Bennett had ever been to on a date. She stepped inside hesitantly, the bell above the door chiming, as if announcing her arrival a little too loudly. Her hands smoothed the sides of her vintage pearl-colored dress, fitted at the waist, the fabric just beginning to fray at the edges. It had belonged to her mother, worn only once before years ago to her college graduation. Tonight it felt like armor and hope all in one. Mia had spent the afternoon in her tiny apartment, curling her blonde hair, applying the little makeup she had scraped together money for. Her lips were a soft pink, but her nerves wore no disguise. The hostess approached with a polite smile. "Reservation for Mia," she said, her voice firmer than she felt. "Right this way." She followed the woman to a small table by the window. The light above it glowed softly as if waiting for something to happen. Mia sat with care, her purse clutched in her lap, knees drawn close beneath the table. She glanced at the time, 6:45 p.m., 15 minutes early. Good. She needed time to breathe, to compose herself. Maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. The last three dates had all ended the same way: disappointment, wrapped in different packages. The finance guy who spent the entire dinner talking about his investment portfolio, the graphic designer who couldn't look away from his phone, the teacher who was still in love with his ex. Each time Mia had returned home feeling smaller, wondering if there was something fundamentally unwantable about her. She scanned the room, pretending to look casual while her eyes darted to the entrance every few seconds. She had met him, Aaron, on a dating app. He had seemed kind, thoughtful, not pushy. His messages were short but sweet. When he had suggested this place, she had hesitated, then said yes. It had taken her months to say yes to anyone. Years, if she was honest with herself. At a table not far from hers, a man in a charcoal gray suit stirred a glass of scotch, his eyes distant. Jack Parker had just left a long meeting, one of many lately, but the tension from his day hadn't followed him into this moment. Instead, his gaze settled on the young woman near the window, who had walked in with so much hope and just a little trembling. Something about her reminded him of the past, of when he used to believe things could begin with a look across a table. His phone vibrated against the polished wood. Jack glanced at the screen, another email about the product recall. 3,000 units of Nutrilife's best-selling children's vitamin powder had tested positive for trace allergens. The PR nightmare was just beginning, and the board was looking for someone to blame. As CEO, the target was squarely on his back. Jack set the phone face down and took another sip of scotch. 1 hour, he had promised himself. 1 hour away from the crisis, away from the constant pressure of single parenthood, away from the weight of running a company his late wife had helped him build. 15 minutes passed, then 30. Mia shifted in her seat, checking her phone again. No messages. She scrolled through the last one Aaron had sent earlier that afternoon. "Can't wait to see you tonight." She smiled at it again, as if trying to remind herself it had been real. At 7:15, she sent a quick message. "Hey, I'm here, just checking in." Still nothing. She waited, looked up each time someone walked in, tried not to fidget with her napkin too much. At 7:30, she called. It rang once, voicemail. A server approached her table gently. "Miss, would you like to go ahead and order something? We're starting to fill up." Mia blinked, suddenly aware of how long she'd been sitting alone. "Oh, I'm actually waiting for someone. Just a little longer, please." The server nodded and moved away. Mia opened her small purse. Inside was a folded $5 bill, her emergency fund, if she was being honest. She had not planned on ordering much, maybe tea, if she absolutely had to, but she had hoped her date would arrive and offer to share a meal. She had hoped for something more than this. Her phone buzzed. A message. She opened it with a flash of relief that quickly turned to ice. "Wow, you actually went. I was just messing with you. Sorry, but you're not really my type. Not worth the Uber." Another message came right after. "You seem nice, but seriously, you thought I was actually coming." The screen blurred. She blinked hard, forcing back the sting. Her jaw tightened. She could feel people around her, couples laughing, waiters moving, glasses clinking, but it all turned to static. Her fingers curled around her napkin. She refused to cry. Not here. Jack, still seated nearby, caught the moment she put her phone down. He hadn't heard the words, but he had seen enough. He saw the color drain from her face. He saw the way she straightened her spine like it was the only thing holding her up. And he saw the familiarity in it all. Because once long ago, he had waited too. Not for a girl to show up, but for someone to believe he was enough. Mia sat still for a long moment, fingers trembling around the napkin in her lap. There was a tightness in her posture that said she wanted to vanish, to fold herself small enough to slip through the cracks in the tile floor. Jack watched from the next table over, saying nothing. He had not meant to linger after dinner, but something about the girl by the window had drawn him in from the moment she arrived. There was a specific look in her eyes, something between bravery and fear. And now there was only the quiet ache of disappointment spread across her face like a bruise. He saw the way she shifted slightly in her seat, pressing her hand gently against her stomach. She was hungry, not just emotionally, but literally hungry. She had been drinking water, no food. Her eyes flicked toward the server's station as if calculating how long she could sit there before someone asked her to leave. She reached for her coat. Slowly, like every movement weighed more than it should, she stood. Her purse was already in her hand, and she turned toward the door with hesitant steps. Just as she moved, a server appeared beside her with a plate in hand, a warm, fragrant pasta dish, and a glass of sparkling lemonade. "Excuse me, miss," the server said with a smile. "Your order." Mia blinked, confused. I didn't order anything. It's been taken care of. Someone requested it for you, and your tab has been covered." Mia froze. Her brows furrowed as she looked around, uncertain. Her first instinct was fear. Was this some kind of joke? Another cruel trick? Then a voice came from just behind her, calm and low. "It's not charity." She turned, startled. Jack stood there, one hand resting casually on the back of his chair. His expression was unreadable except for the soft honesty in his eyes. He wasn't smiling to impress. He wasn't pitying her. He simply saw her. "It's a reminder," he continued. "You deserve to eat even if the world tries to tell you otherwise." Jack pulled out the chair across from hers without waiting for an invitation and sat down. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then softly he said, "Take care of your stomach before you try taking care of someone else's heart." Mia sat down slowly, her eyes wide. It was not the line she expected. It was not a pickup. It was not an insult. It was true. No one had ever said something so gently and hit so deeply. She looked down at the food. Her hand stayed in her lap. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," he replied. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't awkward. It was honest. Mia glanced at him again. He looked expensive, the kind of man she would never expect to sit across from her voluntarily. His suit looked tailored, his watch understated, but clearly high-end. But his face was calm, curious, and kind. She cleared her throat. "You don't know me." "True," Jack said, "but I saw enough." She hesitated. "And what exactly did you see?" He leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low. "Someone who showed up, someone who hoped, someone who waited longer than she should have, not because she was desperate, but because she believed. That still matters." Her throat tightened. No one had ever put it that way. People always told her she was naive, soft-hearted, too hopeful for her own good. But this stranger, this man with gentle eyes, had called her brave without using the word. She finally lifted her fork and took a bite. The food was warm, real, and it was the first proper meal she had had in days. Jack watched her for a second, then leaned back in his chair. "I didn't mean to interfere," he said, "but you reminded me of someone I used to be." Mia looked up. "And who is that?" He smiled faintly. "A guy who thought he needed to be something else to be worth showing up for." Her eyes softened. Something unspoken passed between them. A small flicker of understanding, of recognition. She still felt small, still felt out of place. But somehow, with him sitting there, not pitying her, not mocking her, it felt like she was allowed to exist at that table, to eat, to breathe, to be seen. When Mia finished eating, Jack stood to leave. He simply slid a small business card across the table without pressure or expectation. "I come here often for dinner, not company," he said quietly. She looked up at him, the eyes still a little guarded. He gave a small nod, more understanding than farewell, and left. The marble and glass lobby of Nutri-Life headquarters gleamed under morning light as Jack strode through the revolving doors. Employees nodded respectfully, stepping aside as he passed. His assistant met him at the elevator, already rattling off the day's catastrophes. The FDA wants additional testing on all vitamin supplements from that production lot, she said, handing him a tablet. Legal is preparing a statement, but they need your approval before noon, and the board has called an emergency meeting for 2 o'clock. Jack took the tablet, scanning the preliminary reports. Where are we on tracing the source of the contamination? Quality control is still investigating. Initial findings suggest a supplier issue with the organic pea protein. The elevator doors opened directly into the executive floor. Glass-walled conference rooms lined one side while the other featured an open workspace where marketing teams huddled around displays of colorful product packaging. Jack headed straight for his office, pausing only to glance at a framed photo on his desk, a little girl with his eyes and someone else's smile sitting on a swing. "Clear my schedule after the board meeting," he said. "Emily has a doctor's appointment at 4. His assistant nodded, making the adjustment in his calendar. "Your mother called again. She wants to know if you'll be bringing Emily this weekend." Jack pinched the bridge of his nose. "Tell her we'll be there Sunday for dinner, but we can't stay overnight." The morning dissolved into a blur of conference calls and emergency meetings. The product recall was expanding, and shareholders were getting nervous. By noon, Jack had approved a public statement, authorized additional testing, and prepared his defense for the board. "This is a precautionary measure," he explained to the grim-faced board members gathered around the polished conference table. "Yes, it will impact this quarter's earnings, but preserving consumer trust is worth more than short-term profits." Harold Bentley, the silver-haired chairman, leaned forward. "This is the second quality issue in 18 months, Jack. Shareholders are questioning whether you can effectively manage both the company and your personal situation." The implication hung in the air. Since Claire's death 2 years ago, Jack had faced subtle but persistent suggestions that being a single father compromised his leadership. "My personal situation," Jack repeated coolly, "has nothing to do with a supplier's failure to disclose potential allergen cross-contamination. What it does have to do with is why I take product safety so seriously. My daughter uses these products. I wouldn't sell anything I wouldn't give to her." The meeting ended with reluctant support for Jack's handling of the recall, but the underlying message was clear. His position was precarious. The company Claire had helped him build from a kitchen table startup to a national brand was slipping from his grasp. Later that afternoon, Jack sat in a pediatrician's waiting room watching Emily color a picture of what appeared to be a giraffe with 6 legs. At 4 years old, she had Claire's delicate features and unruly brown curls, but her serious expression was all his. "Is this a special giraffe?" Jack asked, pointing to the extra legs. Emily nodded without looking up. "He walks faster because he has more legs, like when you're late and walks super fast." The observation struck him with unexpected force. Was that how his daughter saw him? Always rushing, always late. Since Claire's accident, he'd been trying to be both parents' executive and functional human being, and apparently failing at all three, according to his 4-year-old's artwork. After the appointment, Jack took Emily for ice cream, deliberately silencing his phone's persistent buzzing. For 20 minutes, he focused entirely on her stories about preschool and the critically important politics of who got to be line leader each day. It was a quiet Thursday morning a week later when Jack stepped into a cozy cafe tucked between the community college and the downtown business district. It was the kind of place that attracted a mix of students with laptops and professionals escaping their offices. The warm scent of cinnamon and coffee filled the air, a sunlight streaming through large windows onto worn wooden tables. He claimed his usual corner spot, opened his laptop, and immediately dove into crisis management emails. Nutri-Life stock had dropped 8% since the recall announcement, and the marketing team was scrambling to rebuild consumer confidence. The door chimed, and Jack glanced up automatically. His fingers paused over the keyboard. Mia stood at the counter, counting coins from a small purse. She wore a simple blue sweater over jeans, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She looked different in daylight, younger perhaps, but no less determined. Jack watched as she ordered a plain black coffee, the most economical choice on the menu. He recognized the careful calculation in her eyes, the mental math of someone watching every penny. When she turned from the counter, their eyes met. Recognition flickered across her face, followed by surprise, then a cautious smile. Jack closed his laptop as she approached. "Either you're following me," she said, Or Boston has fewer coffee shops than I thought. I've claimed this corner for months, he replied. Best Wi-Fi, and they don't mind if I take 3 hours on one coffee. Mia gestured to the empty chair across from him. May I? He nodded, watching as she settled in. Up close, he noticed the textbook peeking from her bag in advanced pediatric nursing. Student? He asked. Nursing school, pediatric specialization. She took a sip of her coffee. And you? Besides being a random dinner benefactor. Jack Parker, he said, offering his hand, CEO of Nutri-Life. Her eyebrows rose slightly as she shook his hand. The supplement company, you're all over the news this week. Not our finest moment, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. We're recalling our children's vitamin powder. Potential allergen contamination. I saw that, Mia said, her expression shifting to professional interest. Pea protein, right? That's increasingly common in children with multiple food sensitivities. Jack straightened, suddenly attentive. You know about pediatric nutrition sensitivities. Part of my training, I'm focusing on allergy and immunology in pediatrics. She hesitated, then added, actually, your labeling could use work. The allergen warnings are technically compliant, but practically useless for parents of kids with multiple sensitivities. His phone rang. The board chairman. Jack silenced it without looking away from Mia. Tell me more. For the next 20 minutes, Mia outlined the practical challenges parents faced when reading nutrition labels, especially for children with complex medical needs. Her insights were precise, informed not just by textbook knowledge, but by obvious empathy for the families navigating these challenges. Jack's mind raced with implications. The marketing team had been working on rebranding the entire children's line before the recall hit, and this perspective was exactly what they were missing. Would you be interested in consulting? He asked abruptly. We need someone who understands both the science and the practical realities for families. Mia blinked. Consulting for Nutri-Life. Just a few hours a week, we're completely revamping our children's line, and your perspective would be valuable. He named a figure that made her coffee cup pause halfway to her lips. That's generous, she said carefully. But why me? You don't even know me. Jack considered his answer. Because you just spent 20 minutes explaining how to make our products better for children without once mentioning how it would benefit you. That's rare. Her cheeks colored slightly. I have a 3-hour class at the university tomorrow morning, but I'm free after 1. Perfect. I'll have security clear you for the executive floor. Jack wrote an address on a napkin. Ask for me at reception. The glass and steel Nutri-Life building loomed over Mia as she approached the revolving doors the next afternoon. Her reflection showed a young woman trying very hard to look professional in her best blazer, purchased secondhand last year for clinical rotations. She had spent an hour that morning researching the company, learning about their rapid growth in the organic supplement market and their recent troubles with the recall. The security guard checked her ID, made a call, and directed her to the executive elevator. Moments later, she stepped into a world of hushed conversations and expensive furniture. Jack's assistant, a poised woman with impeccable hair, led her into a conference room where several executives in tailored suits were already gathered around a large table covered with product samples and marketing materials. Jack stood at the head of the table, marker in hand, annotating a whiteboard filled with flowcharts. He looked different here, more commanding, his casual warmth replaced by focused intensity. Everyone, this is Mia Bennett, he announced. She's a pediatric nursing specialist who's going to consult on the rebranding. Mia, this is our executive team. The introductions passed in a blur. Marketing director, head of research and development, legal counsel. Mia took the empty seat, acutely aware of the curious glances. A man at the far end leaned toward his colleague, whispering something that made them both smirk in her direction. Jack continued the meeting without pause, outlining the challenges facing their flagship children's products. We're not just fixing a recall problem, we're rebuilding trust with parents who need to believe we care about their children as much as they do. For the first hour, Mia mostly listened, taking notes and absorbing the corporate dynamics. The marketing team presented sleek packaging designs with cartoon superheroes and vibrant colors. The research director discussed reformulation options to address allergen concerns. When Jack finally turned to her asking for her thoughts, Mia hesitated. These people had MBAs from prestigious universities and decades of corporate experience. She had student loans and a half-completed nursing degree. Our target demographic is health-conscious parents aged 28 to 45, the marketing director was saying. They respond to aspirational messaging and bright, engaging visuals. Mia cleared her throat. With respect, that's not what parents of children with dietary restrictions care about. The room quieted. The marketing director's smile tightened. We have extensive market research. When your child has severe allergies or sensitivities, Mia continued, you don't care about cartoon characters or aspirational messaging. You need clear information presented consistently across products. You need to trust that the company understands what's at stake for your family. She reached for one of the sample bottles, turning it to show the nutrition panel. This ingredient list requires a chemistry degree to decipher. Parents are making decisions at 3 a.m. with a sick child. They need clarity, not cleverness. The marketing director's face flushed. Our focus groups, were they composed of parents whose children have life-threatening allergies? Mia asked. Because those parents form tight-knit communities. They share information about which brands they trust. One unclear label or misleading claim can destroy your reputation in those networks forever. Silence fell across the table. Jack's expression remained neutral, but his eyes had a new intensity. What would you suggest? He asked. Mia took a deep breath and outlined a comprehensive approach, standardized labeling formats across products, plain language allergen explanations, QR codes, a linking to detailed sourcing information, and dedicated support lines staffed by people with a medical background. By the time she finished, the energy in the room had shifted. The research director was taking notes. The legal counsel was nodding thoughtfully. Even the marketing team seemed engaged rather than defensive. This is exactly why I asked Mia to join us, Jack said. We've been thinking like a supplement company. We need to think like the parents who depend on our products. He turned to Mia. Would you be willing to review our entire children's line and provide recommendations? Before she could answer, their conference room door opened and a silver-haired woman in an expensive suit stepped in, followed by a small girl with unruly brown curls. I'm sorry to interrupt, the woman said, not sounding sorry at all, but someone has been asking for her father rather insistently. Jack's professional demeanor softened instantly. Emily, what are you doing here? The little girl ran to him, arms outstretched. Grandma said you needed cheering up because of the call. Recall, sweetheart, Jack corrected, lifting her onto his lap. Margaret, I thought we agreed you'd take her to the museum this afternoon. The older woman, Jack's mother, Mia, realized, gave a practiced smile. The exhibition was closed for renovations. Since we were downtown already, I thought we'd surprise you. Her gaze swept the room, lingering briefly on Mia with subtle assessment. Everyone, this is my daughter Emily, Jack said, and my mother Margaret Parker. Emily waved cheerfully at the table of executives, completely unintimidated. Her eyes widened when she spotted the colorful product samples. Are those new vitamins? They might be, Jack answered. We're working on making them better for kids. Emily's attention shifted to Mia, her head tilting curiously. Are you helping with the vitamins too? Before Mia could answer, Margaret interjected smoothly. Jack, we won't keep you from your meeting. Emily and I can wait in your office until you're finished. Actually, Jack said, checking his watch, we were just wrapping up. He turned to the team. Let's reconvene tomorrow. Everyone review Mia's suggestions and come prepared with implementation plans. As the executives gathered their materials and filed out, Margaret's gaze returned to Mia, more pointed this time. And you are Mia Bennett, she replied, extending her hand. I'm consulting on the children's product line. Margaret's handshake was brief and cool. How interesting. What firm are you with? I'm an independent consultant, Mia said. I'm also completing my pediatric nursing specialization. A student. Margaret's eyebrows rose fractionally. How resourceful of Jack to find such fresh perspective. Jack appeared at his mother's side, Emily now perched on his shoulders. Mia has exactly the expertise we need right now. Her insights today were more valuable than the last 3 market research reports combined. Margaret smiled thinly. Well, I'm sure it's all very fascinating. Emily, say goodbye to your father's colleagues. We should let them get back to work. Can I stay with Daddy? Emily asked, patting the top of Jack's head. Daddy has important meetings all afternoon, Margaret said. We'll see him on Sunday for dinner. Jack lifted Emily from his shoulders, bringing her to eye level. I'll be home for bedtime, sweetheart. You can tell me all about your day then. Emily sighed dramatically but accepted a kiss on the forehead before taking her grandmother's hand. As they left, Margaret glanced back at Mia with an expression that made it clear their brief interaction had not gone unnoticed. When they were alone in the conference room, Jack turned to Mia. I apologize for the interruption. She's beautiful, Mia said. Your daughter. She's the reason I do any of this, he replied, gesturing to the corporate surroundings. Her mother and I started Nutrilife after Emily was born. Claire had a background in biochemistry, and she was frustrated by the lack of truly clean supplements for children. Something in his voice made Mia pause. Jack's expression shifted subtly. Claire died 2 years ago. Car accident. I'm sorry, Mia said softly. I didn't know. No reason you would. Jack began gathering the scattered papers on the table. After she died, I nearly sold the company. It was her vision more than mine originally, but then I realized it was part of what I could preserve for Emily, her mother's legacy. The personal revelation hung in the air between them, unexpected and unguarded. Jack seemed momentarily surprised by his own candor. Your mother seems very involved with Emily, Mia observed, changing the subject slightly. Jack gave a wry smile. Margaret helps with childcare when my regular sitter isn't available. She's still adjusting to her role. She and Claire were very close. Before Mia could respond, Jack's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and sighed. The board chairman. Again, I should take this. Mia nodded, gathering her notes. I should get going anyway. I have a shift at the university clinic tonight. The consulting role, Jack said, his hand covering the phone. Are you interested? Mia thought about her student loans, her cramped apartment, the second-hand textbooks she could barely afford. She thought about the expired credit card in her wallet and the notice from the university about outstanding tuition payments. But more than that, she thought about the passion that had flared in the meeting room as she advocated for children and families navigating medical challenges. For the first time in years, someone had actually listened to her ideas. Yes, she said, I'm interested. Jack's smile reached his eyes. Good. My assistant will draw up the paperwork. Can you come back tomorrow, same time? As Maya left the gleaming corporate tower and headed toward the bus stop, her mind raced with the day's unexpected developments. 1 week ago, she had been sitting alone in a restaurant, humiliated by a cruel prank. Now she was consulting for a major company, her ideas taken seriously by executives and a CEO who seemed to actually see her potential. It felt dangerously close to hope. The university library stood like a sanctuary between two office buildings, its weathered stone facade a stark contrast to the glass and steel surrounding it. Mia often came here between classes and clinic shifts, finding peace in the quiet study rooms and the view of a small courtyard garden where stubborn flowers pushed through cracks in the pavement. She had claimed her usual corner table, textbooks spread around her when the sound of a child's laughter drew her attention. Near the children's section, a familiar little girl with brown curls was pulling books from the lower shelves, creating a colorful pile on the carpet. Jack knelt beside her, examining each selection with exaggerated seriousness. This one looks promising, and this one has excellent dragons. But where are the stories about brave knights? I don't want knights today, Emily declared. I want stories about girls who do science like Mommy did. Jack's expression softened. That's a perfect choice. Let's see what we can find. Mia hesitated, not wanting to intrude on their moment. She began quietly gathering her things, planning to slip out unnoticed, when Emily looked up and spotted her. Look, Daddy, it's the vitamin lady from your work. Jack turned surprise, crossing his features before he smiled. Mia, I didn't expect to see you here. I study here sometimes, she explained, approaching cautiously. The nursing school library is always overcrowded. Emily stood, abandoning her book pile to examine Mia more closely. Do you make medicine for kids? Mia crouched to the child's level. Not exactly. I'm learning how to take care of children when they're sick. Emily considered this information seriously. My mom was a scientist. She made vitamins to help people stay strong. That sounds like important work, Mia said gently. Emily nodded, then leaned forward unexpectedly, sniffing the air near Mia's shoulder. Her eyes widened. You smell like Mommy used to. The words fell like stones in still water. Jack froze his breath, catching visibly. Mia remained perfectly still, unsure how to respond to the child's innocent observation. Emily's expression was solemn, matter of fact. Mommy smelled like flowers and clean things, not like Grandma's heavy perfume. Mia knelt to Emily's eye level, her voice gentle. Well, that's a big compliment. Your mommy must have smelled like kindness. Emily nodded solemnly. Jack looked away, his jaw tightening slightly. He blinked twice, then cleared his throat. Okay, sweet pea, let's pick out our books. Emily ran back to her pile of books, immediately absorbed in her selections. Jack remained standing with Mia, his eyes still slightly unfocused. She passed 2 years ago, he said quietly. Emily doesn't usually say things like that. Mia nodded, understanding more than she could put into words. Children remember with their hearts more than their heads. Jack looked at her, then really looked, and for the first time something in his gaze wasn't guarded, just open, vulnerable, real. Were you heading out? He asked after a moment. I was about to. I have a clinical rotation in an hour. Jack hesitated. Emily and I usually get hot chocolate at the cafe next door after we pick out books. You'd be welcome to join us, if you have time. The invitation hung in the air between them, casual, but somehow weighted with significance. In the brief silence, Emily appeared at Jack's side, arms full of colorful books. I found all the Science Girl stories, she announced proudly. Can we get hot chocolate now? With extra marshmallows, Jack smiled down at his daughter. I was just asking Mia if she'd like to join us. Emily turned to Mia with sudden intensity. Do you like marshmallows in your hot chocolate? The simple question from this child, who had just connected her to a mother she'd never meet, settled something in Mia's chest. I love marshmallows, she answered honestly, especially the tiny ones. Emily's face lit up. Those are the best kind. She slipped her small hand into Mia's with the easy trust of childhood. You can sit next to me. And just like that, a bridge formed, unplanned, unexpected, but somehow feeling like it had always been waiting to be discovered. Steam rose from copper pots in Nutri-Life's research kitchen, filling the air with the earthy scent of simmering vegetables and herbs. Unlike the sterile corporate conference rooms upstairs, this space felt alive. White subway tile walls lined with stainless steel workstations where nutritionists in crisp lab coats carefully measured ingredients for the next generation of children's supplements. Mia stood at the central island, examining the array of sample formulations spread before her. Each small jar contained a different vitamin powder blend, color-coded with numbered labels. 3 weeks into her consulting role, she had already revolutionized the company's approach to allergen labeling. Today, she was tackling the formulations themselves. The mango peach blend has the best flavor profile, the head nutritionist explained, but the beta-carotene content gives it that artificial orange color parents might associate with the artificial additives. Mia dipped a clean spoon into the powder, adding a few drops of water to test the consistency. What if we incorporated a small amount of beetroot powder? It would soften the orange while adding natural iron content. She mixed a small batch, adjusting the ratios until the color transformed into a warm, appetizing hue. The team gathered around, murmuring approval as Mia prepared a test sample. The kitchen door swung open and Jack entered, loosening his tie after a morning of tense negotiations with suppliers. His shoulders relaxed visibly as he took in the scene. Making progress, he asked, approaching the workstation. Mia gestured to the new samples. We've resolved the texture issues in the original formula and enhanced the nutritional profile while keeping the ingredient list pronounceable. Try this one. Jack accepted the small spoon she offered, tasting the mixture with the seriousness of a wine connoisseur. His eyebrows lifted in surprise. That's actually pleasant. Not at all like the vitamin chalk I expected. Children won't take supplements that taste medicinal, no matter how good they are for them, Mia explained. We need parents to trust the science, but we need kids to actually want to eat it. Jack studied her with quiet admiration. In the bright kitchen light surrounded by research, she clearly understood Mia seemed transformed from the hesitant woman he'd met in the restaurant. Here her confidence was natural, her expertise undeniable. This reminds me of how Claire used to work, he said softly. She'd spend hours in our kitchen at home experimenting with recipes until Emily would actually eat them. That's how Nutri-Life started, just a mother trying to nourish her child. The comparison hung in the air between them. Mia felt the weight of it, not just the compliment, but the rare glimpse into his past, the trust implied in sharing that memory. The nutritionist cleared her throat, breaking the moment. Should we proceed with this formulation for the focus group next week? Mia nodded, redirecting her attention to the task at hand. Yes, but let's prepare variations with slightly different sweetness levels. Some parents will prefer less honey in the mixture. As the team packed sample containers, Jack moved closer to Mia, his voice low enough for only her to hear. Are you free this evening? Emily has been asking about you. She wondered if you might join us for dinner. The invitation carried no pressure, just a simple openness that made Mia's chest tighten unexpectedly. In the 3 weeks since their chance meeting at the library, she had seen Jack almost daily at Nutrilife, but had carefully maintained professional boundaries. This was different, a deliberate step across the line from colleagues to something more personal. I'd like that, she answered honestly. Jack's modest two-story colonial sat on a tree-lined street in a quiet suburb, elegant but understated, with a well-tended garden and a basketball hoop mounted above the garage. Nothing about the exterior betrayed that it belonged to the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. As Mia approached the front door, a warm glow emanated from windows framed by simple white curtains. Jack answered her knock with a kitchen towel slung over his shoulder, the formal business persona replaced by a man in worn jeans and a faded Harvard Business School t-shirt. Behind him, clattering sounds and a child's laughter spilled from the kitchen. Oh, fair warning, he said with a rueful smile. Emily insisted on helping with dinner, so we've got a slight disaster situation unfolding. The kitchen told the story, flour dusted across countertops, vegetable scraps scattered around a cutting board, and in the center of it all, Emily standing on a step stool, her face scrunched in concentration as she carefully arranged misshapen lumps of dough on a baking sheet. Mia, Emily exclaimed, looking up with flour-streaked cheeks. I'm making special bread. Daddy says it's how my mom used to make it with herbs and cheese inside. The casual mention of Claire no longer created the same painful silence it once had. Jack moved to help Emily with her culinary creation, his hands gently guiding hers as they formed the dough into more recognizable shapes. Claire was Italian on her mother's side, he explained to Mia. These herb rolls were her specialty. Emily doesn't remember eating them, but somehow she remembers the process, watching her mother's hands, the scent of the basil and oregano. Mia set down her purse and washed her hands at the sink. May I help? Soon the three of them fell into a natural rhythm. Jack finishing the main course, Emily decorating her bread creations, and Mia preparing a simple salad. The domesticity of the scene struck her with unexpected force. How long had it been since she'd cooked in a real family kitchen rather than the cramped efficiency unit in her studio apartment? When they finally sat down to eat, Emily insisted Mia take the chair beside hers. Not the guest position at the end of the table, but the spot that felt intentionally significant. They ate Emily's oddly shaped but surprisingly delicious bread, and Jack served a pasta dish that revealed he was far more skilled in the kitchen than his CEO image might suggest. Sometimes nourishment isn't about the nutrients, Mia observed, watching Emily proudly devour her creations. It's about the memory being created in the process. Jack's eyes met hers across the table, recognition flickering in their depths. Claire used to say almost exactly that. The evening unfolded with surprising ease, helping Emily with a school art project, a brief tour of the house, and finally the bedtime ritual. Without discussion, Mia found herself included in this most intimate family routine. She sat on the edge of Emily's bed while Jack read a story about a young girl scientist who saved her town with an ingenious invention. As Emily's eyes grew heavy, she reached for Mia's hand. Can you come back tomorrow? We could make more special bread. The question carried innocent hope, unaware of the complex adult considerations it invoked. Mia felt Jack watching carefully, neutral, allowing his daughter's question to stand uninfluenced. I have classes tomorrow, Mia answered gently, but perhaps another time soon. Emily nodded, already drifting toward sleep. Promise? The weight of that small word hung in the air. Promises to children were sacred contracts, Mia knew. They remembered every broken word, carried them like invisible scars. I promise we'll make bread together again, she said carefully. Later, as Jack walked her to her car, the spring night air carried the scent of blooming magnolias from a neighbor's yard. Neither spoke immediately, the evening's unexpected intimacy still settling around them. Thank you for tonight, Jack finally said. Emily doesn't connect with many people. Not since Claire. Mia leaned against her car door, studying his face in the soft glow of the porch light. She's an extraordinary child. You're doing an amazing job with her. Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping the pieces together, he admitted. Between the company crisis and trying to be both parents, sometimes I wonder if I'm failing at everything equally. The rare vulnerability from this typically composed man touched something deep in Mia. You know what I see. A father who makes her bread with his daughter because it connects her to her mother. A CEO who recalls his entire product line rather than risk a single child's health. That's not failure, Jack. That's extraordinary courage. His expression softened, the carefully maintained control, slipping just enough to reveal the exhausted, grieving man beneath the competent exterior. For a breathless moment, Mia thought he might move closer, might bridge the careful distance they'd maintained. Instead, he simply said, "Drive safely," and stepped back to let her leave. The fluorescent lights of the hospital pediatric ward cast a sterile glow across the hallway where Mia conducted her clinical rounds. 6 weeks into her consulting arrangement with NutriLife, she had established a careful balance between her nursing studies, hospital rotations, and her growing responsibilities at the company. She checked the chart of her next patient, an 8-year-old boy with severe food allergies and malnutrition concerns. As she entered the room, she recognized the woman sitting beside the hospital bed immediately. Margaret Parker looked up from her magazine, surprise flashing across her perfectly composed features. "Ms. Bennett, isn't it Jack's nutrition consultant?" The slight pause carried volumes of unspoken assessment. Mia maintained her professional demeanor, focusing on the child in the bed. "Mrs. Parker, I didn't realize you were visiting today. Are you a family friend?" "Brandon's mother serves on the hospital's fundraising committee with me," Margaret explained smoothly. "I stop by when children are here alone during parent work hours. Volunteer work is so important, don't you think?" The subtle emphasis on volunteer carried a clear implication about Mia's paid consulting role. Mia checked the boy's vital signs, making notes in his chart, while maintaining a warm smile for her young patient. "Brandon, how are you feeling about trying those new supplement drinks we discussed yesterday?" The boy shrugged. "They taste weird." "They're specially formulated for children with your specific allergies," Mia explained, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I know they taste different, but they contain exactly what your body needs right now." She pulled a small notebook from her pocket, sketching a simple cartoon as she spoke. "Think of your body like a construction site. These nutrients are the building materials the workers need. If we don't deliver the right supplies, the construction slows down." Brandon leaned forward, interested despite himself. "So the protein is like lumber." "Exactly." Mia continued the metaphor, drawing little construction workers hauling different nutrients into a body-shaped building. Margaret watched this interaction with narrowed eyes. When Brandon became absorbed in adding to Mia's drawing, she stepped closer, voice pitched low. "Jack mentioned you have been spending time at their home with Emily." The statement hung in the air, neither question nor accusation, but somehow both. Mia met the older woman's gaze directly. "Emily is a wonderful child. Jack invited me for dinner a few times." Margaret's perfectly manicured nails tapped against her designer handbag. "My son is a brilliant businessman, but sometimes naive about people's motivations. Emily is extremely vulnerable right now, and Jack, well, he hasn't dated since Claire passed. He may not recognize when someone is getting close to him for strategic reasons." The implication landed like a slap. Mia straightened professional composure, masking the sting of the words. "Mrs. Parker, I respect your concern for your family, but my relationship with Jack is primarily professional, and my interest in Emily's well-being is genuine." "Of course you'd say that," Margaret replied with a thin smile. "Just understand that Emily has already lost one mother. She doesn't need to become attached to someone else who's passing through." Before Mia could respond, her pager beeped another patient needed attention. She excused herself, Margaret's words echoing in her mind as she walked down the sterile corridor. The woman's concern wasn't entirely unreasonable, Mia admitted to herself. From the outside, their situation might indeed look suspicious, a struggling nursing student suddenly gaining access to a wealthy CEO's inner circle. The problem was Margaret's assumption wasn't entirely wrong. The consulting fee from NutriLife had allowed Mia to pay her overdue tuition and finally replace her worn-out nursing shoes. She had benefited materially from knowing Jack. But that wasn't why she'd accepted his dinner invitations, or read bedtime stories to Emily, or spent hours perfecting formulations in the research kitchen. Those choices had nothing to do with strategy and everything to do with the unexpected connection she'd found with this makeshift family, a connection that felt dangerously like belonging. The Nutri-Life break room hummed with the quiet conversations of employees on their lunch break. Mia had taken to eating there occasionally, finding the corporate environment a welcome change from the chaotic hospital cafeteria. Today she sat alone reviewing lab results from the latest product tests while nibbling on a salad. Two marketing associates entered, getting coffee at the machine across the room. Their voices carried clearly in the half-empty space. "So what's the deal with Parker's pet consultant, the nursing student? Haven't you heard? She's practically moved into his house. Picks up his kid from school sometimes." Seriously, that was fast. Didn't she just appear out of nowhere a couple months ago? Classic rebound. The board's been pushing him to stabilize his personal situation. A ready-made replacement mom solves that problem nicely. Smart career move on her part, from student loans to corporate wife in one easy step. They laughed, unaware that Mia could hear every word. Heat crept up her neck as she stared fixedly at her papers. Appetite vanishing. The casual cruelty of their assessment made her stomach clench. Was that how everyone at Nutri-Life viewed her, as an opportunist who had somehow manipulated her way into Jack's life? She gathered her things quietly, slipping out of the break room without confronting the gossips. In the elevator, she pressed the button for the executive floor, her mind racing. Perhaps she had been naive to think she could maintain both a professional and personal relationship with Jack without inviting exactly this kind of speculation. The elevator doors opened to reveal Jack's assistant, looking unusually flustered. "Mia, thank goodness! Jack's looking for you. There's an emergency meeting in the main conference room." The glass-walled conference room was packed with tense executives when Mia entered. Jack stood at the head of the table, his expression grave as he spoke with the company's legal counsel. On the large screen behind him was a news headline: "Child hospitalized after allergic reaction to Nutri-Life supplement." Jack looked up as Mia entered, relief briefly crossing his features. "Mia, thank you for coming so quickly. We've just received notice of a lawsuit. A 6-year-old boy in Arizona allegedly had a severe allergic reaction to our children's immune support powder, the reformulated version." The implications hit Mia immediately. The reformulated version incorporated many of her recommendations, ingredient substitutions she had personally suggested to reduce allergen risks. The legal counsel, a stern woman with steel gray hair, addressed the room. "The child is currently in stable condition, but the parents are claiming our product was improperly labeled and contained peanut traces despite claiming to be peanut-free. They've already contacted the media and filed suit this morning." "That's impossible," Mia interjected, stepping forward. "I personally reviewed the entire supply chain documentation. The production facility is completely peanut-free, and we implemented triple testing protocols specifically for nut allergens." Jack nodded. "That's why I needed you here. We need to understand exactly what could have happened. If there's a flaw in our new protocols." He didn't need to finish the sentence. If the reformulated products had failed, it would not only devastate a family whose child was suffering, but could potentially destroy the company, and with it, Claire's legacy for Emily. "The board is convening an emergency session at 3, Jack continued. "They're questioning whether the rapid implementation of our new formulations was prudent." The subtext was clear. Mia's recommendations, which Jack had championed and fast-tracked, were now under scrutiny. His position as CEO, already precarious after the previous recall, hung in the balance. For the next several hours, Mia worked with the quality control team, tracing every step of the production process for the batch in question. They reviewed testing logs, supplier certifications, and shipping manifests, searching for any point where contamination might have occurred. By the time Jack's board meeting began, they had found no obvious breach in protocol. Mia paced outside the conference room, watching through the glass as Jack faced the grim-faced board members. Though she couldn't hear the words being exchanged, the body language told the story: accusatory gestures, head-shaking, pointed fingers. Harold Bentley, the board chairman, seemed particularly animated, jabbing his finger at documents spread before him. Jack remained composed, responding with measured calm, but Mia could see the tension in his shoulders, the tight line of his jaw. When the meeting finally ended, Jack emerged looking drained. The executives filed out behind him, several casting cold glances in Mia's direction. "They want me to step down temporarily," Jack said, without preamble when they were alone. Bentley thinks my personal distractions have compromised my judgment. He specifically cited my decision to implement your recommendations without more extensive testing. Mia felt sick. Jack, I'm so sorry. If I pushed too hard or missed something, this isn't your fault, he cut her off firmly. I made the final decisions as CEO, but we need to figure out what happened with this child, and we need to do it fast. I have 48 hours before the board votes on my suspension. They worked late into the night, poring over documentation in Jack's office. As midnight approached, Jack ordered dinner delivered containers of pasta that sat mostly untouched as they focused on the investigation. The child's medical records would tell us a lot, Mia said, rubbing her tired eyes. If we could see exactly what type of reaction he had, it might help identify the specific allergen. Jack nodded. Legal is trying to get access through proper channels, but the family's attorneys are blocking us. All we know is what was reported to the media: anaphylactic reaction, ER visit, current stable condition. Mia stared at the production lot number, something nagging at her memory. This batch was produced at the Phoenix facility, right? Wasn't that plant just recently certified for allergen-free production? Yes, about 3 months ago. It was part of our expansion strategy, having regional production to reduce shipping times and carbon footprint. Mia pulled up the facility certification documents, scanning the detailed reports. The Phoenix facility also produces supplements for other brands, correct under contract manufacturing agreements. Jack nodded, suddenly alert to her line of thinking. Yes, including some of our competitors. Who certifies their allergen protocols between production runs? Is it the same third-party lab that certifies our products? Jack's expression changed as he followed her reasoning. No, they use their own internal verification for other clients. We're the only ones requiring external certification. They looked at each other, the same thought forming. What if the facility hadn't followed proper cleaning protocols between manufacturing runs? What if they had run a peanut-containing product for another client before switching to Nutrilife's allergen-free formula? By dawn, they had compiled enough evidence to justify sending an independent inspector to the Phoenix facility. Jack made the calls personally, pulling strings to get someone on site within hours. Meanwhile, Mia dug deeper into the child's public social media presence, looking for any clues about his specific allergies or medical history. That's when she found a Facebook post from the boy's mother from 4 months earlier, complaining about a different supplement brand causing a similar reaction. The post had been deleted, but Mia found a cached version through persistent searching. Jack, look at this, she called, her heart racing. The same child had a similar reaction to a competitor's product earlier this year, a product made at the same facility. Jack read the post, his expression darkening. This changes things. Either there's a systemic problem at that facility affecting multiple brands, or this isn't an isolated incident, Mia finished. It could be a pattern. By mid-afternoon, the independent inspector had confirmed their suspicions. The Phoenix facility had indeed manufactured a peanut-based protein powder for another client the day before Nutrilife's allergen-free formula was produced. While they claimed to have followed cleaning protocols, the inspector found evidence of inadequate documentation and potential cross-contamination risks. More damning, their research into the family filing the lawsuit revealed a history of similar claims against 3 other supplement companies over the past 5 years, all settled out of court for undisclosed sums. It's a fraud, Jack said, the realization dawning. They target companies with allergen-free claims, knowing that most will settle quietly rather than risk the publicity of fighting back. Mia spread the documentation across his desk. The timing is too perfect. They filed right after our new formulation launched, when we'd be most vulnerable to public scrutiny. Jack's phone rang, the board chairman demanding an update. As Jack presented their findings, Mia watched his demeanor transform from defensive to confidently assertive. By the time he hung up, the board had agreed to postpone the vote on his leadership pending further investigation. We did it, he said, looking at Mia with genuine amazement. You did it. The relief and triumph of the moment swept through them both. Without thinking, Jack moved toward her, his hands reaching for hers. The distance that had always existed between them, professional, careful, measured, suddenly collapsed. For one breathless moment, they stood close enough that Mia could feel the warmth radiating from him, could see the flecks of amber in his brown eyes. His gaze dropped to her lips, the unspoken question hanging between them. Then his phone rang again, Emily's school. The moment shattered reality rushing back in. Jack stepped away, answering the call with concern. Emily wasn't feeling well. The school nurse wanted someone to pick her up. I have to go, he said after hanging up, conflict evident in his expression. The board still needs the complete documentation and legal needs to be briefed on our findings. But Emily, go, Mia said firmly. I'll compile everything and brief the teams. Emily needs you more than Nutrilife does right now. Gratitude flashed across his features. I don't know how to thank you for all of this. You don't have to, she replied simply. Just take care of your daughter. After he left, Mia spent hours organizing their evidence, creating clear documentation for the legal team to use in their defense. By the time she finished, darkness had fallen outside the office windows, the city lights creating a glittering backdrop against the night sky. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jack. Emily has a fever of 102. Doctor says likely just a virus, but she's asking for you. No pressure at all, but if you're free. Mia hesitated only briefly before gathering her things and heading out. The Parker house was quiet when she arrived, only a single lamp illuminating the living room. Jack answered the door, looking exhausted. His normally impeccable appearance, rumpled worry etched across his features. Thank you for coming, he said softly. She's been asking for the medicine lady for hours. I think she associates you with feeling better. Upstairs, Emily lay curled in her pink bed, cheeks flushed with fever, clutching a worn teddy bear. Her eyes brightened slightly when she saw Mia in the doorway. You came, she whispered, voice hoarse. Of course I did. Mia set down her bag and sat gently on the edge of the bed, laying a cool hand against Emily's forehead. The child was burning up her skin, dry and hot to the touch. Drawing from her nursing training, Mia prepared a cool compress, soaking a soft towel in cool water, with a few drops of lavender oil she found in the bathroom cabinet. This will help bring down your fever, she explained gently, placing the compress on Emily's forehead. The lavender helps your head and your heart feel better at the same time. Emily sighed softly, her eyes drifting closed as the cooling relief spread across her heated skin. Mia began to hum softly an old lullaby her own mother had sung during childhood illnesses. Without thinking, she transitioned from humming to singing, her voice barely above a whisper. The moon wears socks when it's cold at night. Stars are the buttons on his nightshirt bright. She continued the nonsense lyrics, a gentle melody meant to soothe a feverish child. Emily's breathing deepened, her small body relaxing into sleep. It wasn't until she finished the song that Mia noticed Jack standing frozen in the doorway, his face a mask of shock, eyes brimming with unshed tears. Jack, she whispered, alarmed by his expression. He shook his head slightly, backing away from the door and disappearing down the hallway. Mia waited until she was certain Emily was asleep before following him. She found him in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter, his head bowed. When he looked up, the raw emotion on his face made her stop in her tracks. That song, he said hoarsely. Claire used to sing it to Emily every night. Those exact words, that exact melody. It was something her grandmother made up, not a real lullaby anyone would know. Mia felt the blood drain from her face. Jack, I had no idea. It just came out. I thought Emily had forgotten. He continued, his voice thick with emotion. She was only 2 when Claire died. I haven't heard that song in our house for 2 years. The coincidence hung between them, inexplicable and profound. Mia couldn't explain how she had channeled a made-up lullaby from a woman she'd never met. Children don't forget love, she said softly. They just wait to hear it again. Jack's composure cracked completely. The grief he'd kept carefully contained for 2 years finally breaking through. He sank into a kitchen chair, face in his hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Mia stood motionless, witnessing this private moment, unsure whether to approach or retreat. Eventually, she moved to sit beside him, offering her presence without words or touch. They remained that way for a long time, a man finally allowing himself to grieve, and a woman who had somehow unknowingly opened that locked door. Eventually, Jack's breathing steadied. He looked up, eyes red, but clearer somehow, as if a weight had been partially lifted. I'm sorry, he began. Don't apologize for feeling, Mia interrupted gently. Emily isn't the only one who lost someone. The simple acknowledgement of his loss, not as a CEO or a single father, but as a man who had loved and lost, seemed to reach a part of him long isolated. For the first time since they'd met, Jack spoke about Claire not in relation to Emily or the company, but as the woman he had loved. He told Mia about their college meeting, their shared dream of creating products that would make a difference in children's health. He described Claire's laugh, her stubbornness, her habit of singing made-up songs about everyday objects. He spoke of their last morning together, an ordinary Tuesday, when she had kissed him goodbye before driving to a supplier meeting, never to return. Mia listened without interruption, offering nothing but her complete attention. When he finally fell silent, the kitchen clock showed it was past midnight. "You should get some rest," she said. "I can stay with Emily tonight, in case her fever spikes again." Jack looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher, gratitude mixed with something deeper, more complex. "Why are you doing all this? The company, Emily, even listening to me fall apart. None of this is your responsibility." The question hung in the air between them, demanding an honesty Mia hadn't fully acknowledged even to herself. Why had she invested so much in this man and his daughter? Why had she rearranged her life to accommodate their needs? "Because when I sat alone in that restaurant, you saw me," she answered simply. "Not what I could do for you, not what I represented, just me. Do you know how rare that is to be truly seen?" Jack's expression softened with recognition. "I think I do." The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. Then Emily's cough sounded from upstairs, breaking the spell. "I'll check on her," Mia said, rising from the table. "You should sleep. Tomorrow will be another long day with the lawsuit." As she turned to leave, Jack caught her hand. "Mia." Her name was a question, a hesitation, a possibility he wasn't quite ready to voice. She squeezed his hand once, then gently pulled away. "Good night, Jack." When in the days that followed, their relationship shifted subtly. At Nutrilife, they worked side by side, defending the company against the fraudulent lawsuit, their professional partnership strengthened by shared purpose. In Jack's home, Mia became a more frequent presence, helping with Emily's recovery and gradually being integrated into their daily routines. They didn't speak about the night he had broken down, nor about the strange coincidence of the lullaby. Some experiences lay beyond words, creating connections that existed in the spaces between conversations. Spring warmed into early summer. The lawsuit against Nutrilife was dismissed after evidence of the family's pattern of fraudulent claims came to light. The board's confidence in Jack's leadership was restored, and the company launched its reformulated children's line to positive reviews and strong sales. Mia continued her nursing studies, now with the financial stability of her expanded consulting role. Her graduation date approached, bringing with it decisions about residency applications and her professional future. One afternoon in late June, Mia arrived at her apartment to find an official-looking envelope in her mailbox. The return address showed the prestigious Williams Pediatric Fellowship Program in Oregon, the most competitive specialized training for pediatric nurses in the country, accepting only 2 candidates each year. Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope. The first line confirmed what seemed impossible. "We are pleased to offer you full scholarship admission to our 1-year intensive pediatric nursing specialization program." Mia sank onto her couch, the letter clutched in her hand. It was everything she had worked for: world-class training, guaranteed placement in top children's hospitals afterward, and a fully funded scholarship that would finally free her from financial stress. It was also in Oregon, 3,000 miles away from Boston. Away from Nutrilife, away from the life she had begun to build, away from Jack and Emily. The thought struck with unexpected force. When had they become so central to her world? When had the possibility of leaving become so painful to contemplate? She didn't tell Jack about the fellowship immediately. The timing felt wrong. Nutrilife was finally stabilizing, and Emily was thriving with their new routine of shared dinners and weekend outings. Instead, Mia carried the knowledge with her, like a stone growing heavier with each passing day. It was Jack's mother who forced the issue. Margaret Parker appeared at Nutrilife one afternoon, impeccably dressed, as always, requesting a private meeting with her son. Through the glass walls of Jack's office, Mia could see their animated conversation, Margaret's gestures becoming increasingly emphatic. Later that evening, as they worked late finalizing packaging for the new product line, Jack seemed distracted, his usual focus fragmented. "Is everything okay?" Mia finally asked. "You've read the same paragraph 3 times." Jack set down the documents, rubbing his temples. "My mother came to express her concerns about our relationship." "I see." Mia kept her voice neutral, though her stomach tightened. "Professional concerns. Personal ones." Jack met her eyes directly. She thinks Emily is becoming too attached to you, that when you inevitably move on with your career, it will devastate her to lose another maternal figure. The words landed with painful accuracy, striking directly at the decision Mia had been avoiding. Your mother is very perceptive. Jack frowned. What do you mean? Mia reached into her bag, withdrawing the fellowship letter she'd been carrying for days. She placed it on the desk between them, watching as Jack scanned the contents, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding to something more complex. Oregon, he said finally. Full scholarship, starting in August. He looked up, his eyes searching hers. This is an incredible opportunity. It's what I've been working toward my entire academic career, Mia confirmed. The training is unparalleled, and the career doors it would open. You should go, Jack said, his voice firm, despite the shadow that crossed his features. This is your future. The immediate support, without hesitation, without selfish resistance, was so characteristically Jack that Mia felt her chest constrict. Of course he would put her dreams ahead of his own desires. Of course he would encourage her to fly rather than hold her back. But what if, she began, then faltered, the fear finally surfacing. What if you think I'm just leaving when things get good, like I used you for stability and now I'm walking away? Jack's expression softened with such tenderness that Mia had to look away. Loving someone, he said quietly, doesn't mean holding them. It means not clipping their wings. The word hung in the air between them. Loving, he had said it so naturally, without emphasis or declaration, as if it were an established fact rather than a revelation. Mia looked up, meeting his gaze. I never planned for any of this, she admitted. Not Nutri-Life, not Emily, and certainly not me. Jack supplied a small smile, touching his lips. You, she confirmed. But now I can't imagine my life without all of it, without both of you. Jack reached across the desk, taking her hand in his. This isn't an ending, Mia. It's just a chapter. Oregon is a plane ride away, not another planet. His calm acceptance both soothed and unsettled her. Was he so willing to let her go because his feelings weren't as deep as hers? Or was this the ultimate proof of what he felt? The willingness to put her needs above his desires. What about Emily? Mia asked, the little girl's face appearing in her mind. Emily will understand that important people sometimes have to be far away for a while, Jack said. We'll figure it out together, video calls, visits when possible. The important thing is that you don't sacrifice this opportunity out of some misplaced sense of obligation. Obligation. The word stung, though Mia knew he hadn't meant it as an accusation. Was that how he saw her consideration, as obligation rather than choice? It's not obligation, she said firmly. It's connection. Something I haven't felt in a very long time. Jack's expression softened. Then trust that real connection can withstand distance and time. Oregon is 1 year. Your career is a lifetime. As Mia left Nutri-Life that night, Jack's words echoed in her mind. He was right logically. The fellowship was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Their connection, if real, would survive the separation. Yet as she drove home through the quiet streets, past the park where she'd pushed Emily on the swings, past the ice cream shop where they'd celebrated the lawsuit dismissal, past all the landmarks of this unexpected life she'd stumbled into, Mia wondered if logic was enough when matters of the heart were concerned. The following weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Mia accepted the fellowship, arranged to sublet her apartment, and began the process of transitioning her consulting work to a remote arrangement. Jack supported her every step, helping with the logistics and ensuring she could maintain her connection to Nutri-Life during her year away. They didn't speak again about his use of the word loving, nor did they act on the unspoken attraction that hummed between them. It was as if they had tacitly agreed to pause, to wait, to see if what they felt could survive the coming separation. Telling Emily proved the most difficult task. They chose a Saturday afternoon in the park, Emily's favorite place for serious conversations. The little girl sat between them on a bench, licking an ice cream cone as Jack explained that Mia would be moving away for a while to become an even better nurse. But why can't you learn to be a better nurse here? Emily asked, her brow furrowing with 4-year-old logic. Sometimes we have to go where the best teachers are, Mia explained gently. Like if you wanted to learn to be an astronaut, you'd need to go to NASA. Emily considered this ice cream momentarily forgotten. Will you come back? The simple question carried the weight of a child who had already experienced profound loss. Mia met Jack's eyes over Emily's head, seeing her own pain reflected there. Yes, Mia promised. I'll come back. That evening, Emily insisted on making a paper chain one link for each week until Mia would return. Jack helped her count out 52 colorful strips, and together they formed the first few links, a tangible representation of time and separation and promised reunion. As the departure date approached, Mia found herself cataloging moments, storing memories like provisions for the journey ahead. Emily's laughter as they baked cookies, Jack's rare full smile when something genuinely amused him, the comfortable silence of shared work, the way morning light filtered through Jack's kitchen windows on Sunday mornings. The night before her flight, Jack invited her to dinner at his home. They ate pasta by candlelight. Emily's insistence and finished creating the paper chain that would mark the days until her return. When it was time to leave, Mia knelt down to say goodbye to Emily. Before she could speak, Emily threw her arms around her neck and whispered, "You're not going far. Daddy says hearts don't care about distance." Mia closed her eyes, pulling the little girl closer. It was the kind of goodbye she had never experienced before, one without guilt, without fear, just love. She looked up at Jack, who stood by the door, hands in his pockets, eyes reflecting the same complex emotion she felt. No promises were spoken, no wait for me, just a silent understanding that something real could survive the space between. That love in its truest form did not demand proximity. Jack walked her to her car one last time. The summer night air carried the scent of freshly cut grass and distant rain. They stood in the driveway, the moment stretching between them, filled with all that remained unsaid. "Thank you," Mia said finally, "for encouraging me to go. Not everyone would." Jack smiled, the gesture not reaching his eyes. "I'm not being entirely selfless. A doctor once told me that healing sometimes requires distance. Maybe that's true for all of us." As she drove away, Mia glanced in the rearview mirror. Jack remained in the driveway, a solitary figure watching her departure. It struck her then that this man who had once seemed so powerful, so completely in control of his world, was choosing not to control this, to let her go without demands or conditions, the ultimate act of trust and love. She cried that night, not because she was being left behind, but because for the first time she was being let go without being let down. The Portland rain tapped a gentle rhythm against the windows of Mia's apartment, creating a soothing backdrop to the quiet evening. 10 months into her fellowship at Williams' pediatric program, she had grown accustomed to the persistent Oregon drizzle, so different from Boston's dramatic seasonal shifts. Her small one-bedroom overlooking a tree-lined street had become a sanctuary of sorts, a place where she could process the intense learning experiences of each day. Tonight, she sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by patient files, preparing case presentations for tomorrow's rounds. The fellowship had exceeded her expectations, immersing her in cutting-edge pediatric care approaches and connecting her with leading specialists in children's immunology. Yet for all its professional rewards, Oregon had never quite felt like home. Mia glanced at the shelf where Emily's paper chain hung, now reduced to just 14 colorful links. The child had insisted on making it long enough to span the entire year, each paper loop representing a week of separation. Jack had been faithfully removing one link every Sunday, with Emily sending Mia photos of the shrinking chain as the months passed. Her phone buzzed with an incoming video call. Emily's face appeared on the screen, bright and animated, despite the late hour in Boston. "Mia, Daddy, let me stay up late because tomorrow's a teacher work day. I got to remove 2 chain links this week because Daddy forgot last Sunday." Behind Emily, Mia caught a glimpse of Jack in the kitchen phone pressed to his ear, brow furrowed in concentration, the familiar posture of a CEO handling yet another crisis. "2 links is definitely special," Mia agreed, shifting to get more comfortable. "That means I'll be home even sooner." The words slipped out unintentionally. Home, not back or in Boston, but home. Emily didn't seem to notice the significance, launching instead into a detailed account of her kindergarten science project, growing bean plants in different types of soil. Jack appeared briefly in the frame, offering a tired smile and a wave before returning to his call. Their video conversations had developed a comfortable rhythm over the months. 3 times a week, Mia would connect with Emily for stories and virtual homework help. Once a week, usually after Emily's bedtime, she and Jack would talk about Nutrilife's ongoing projects, Emily's development, and occasionally cautiously about themselves. They had never explicitly defined what awaited at the end of her fellowship. The unspoken question hovered in the spaces between their conversations. What happens when the paper chain ends? But neither had forced the issue, as if testing whether their connection could sustain itself on faith alone. Daddy's been super busy with the new product, what's it called again? Daddy, Jack's voice called from somewhere off screen. Product launch, sweetheart. Yeah, that. He's making tiny spoons for babies with your picture on the box. Mia's eyebrows rose. My picture? Emily nodded enthusiastically. Not your face, but a lady holding a baby. Daddy says it's inspired by you. Before Mia could process this revelation, Emily was distracted by something off camera. Gotta go. Daddy says it's ice cream time. Love you, Mia. The screen went dark before Mia could respond, leaving her with an unfamiliar warmth spreading through her chest. Love you. Emily had said it so casually, so naturally, the way children do when expressing a simple truth. And the product with her silhouette, what did that mean? She turned back to her case files, but concentration proved impossible. Tomorrow marked her official evaluation with the fellowship director, the meeting that would determine her future placement opportunities. Top performers were typically offered positions at prestigious children's hospitals across the country. Mia had worked tirelessly to earn such an offer, yet now faced with the imminent reality of it, she found herself strangely conflicted. The following morning, Mia sat across from Dr. Harrison in his meticulously organized office, her portfolio of case studies and research papers neatly arranged on the desk between them. The distinguished pediatrician had been a demanding but fair mentor throughout the program. Your work has been exemplary, Ms. Bennett. He began reviewing her final evaluation. Particularly your research on communication techniques for children with complex medical needs. I've rarely seen someone connect so effectively with young patients while maintaining clinical objectivity. Mia accepted the praise with a small nod. Thank you, sir. This fellowship has been transformative. Which brings us to the matter of your placement. Dr. Harrison removed his glasses, setting them carefully beside her file. We've received interest from several top-tier institutions. Seattle Children's has a specific interest in your immunology background. There's also an opening at Mayo Clinic's pediatric division. Both would be exceptional opportunities. He paused, studying her expression. You don't seem as enthusiastic as I expected. Mia straightened, trying to mask her conflicted emotions. They're both incredible offers. I'm just processing the options. There is another possibility. Dr. Harrison continued, retrieving a letter from his desk drawer. We received this rather unusual inquiry from Boston Children's Hospital. They're creating a specialized position for pediatric nutrition and allergy management, a hybrid clinical and research role. They specifically requested you, citing your work with NutriLife Pharmaceuticals. He handed her the letter. It's not as prestigious as Mayo or Seattle, but the position seems tailored to your unique combination of clinical and corporate experience. Mia scanned the document, heart racing, as she recognized the department head's name, a physician who had collaborated with NutriLife on several projects. The position description outlined exactly the intersection of patient care and nutrition research she had been pursuing. This is unexpected, she managed, mind whirling with possibilities. Harrison leaned back in his chair. I sensed this might align with personal considerations as well as professional ones. Boston is your home, isn't it? It wasn't always, Mia admitted. But yes, I've come to think of it that way. Ms. Bennett, allow me to offer some unsolicited advice from someone who's spent 40 years in medicine. Exceptional career opportunities come along frequently for talented clinicians. But finding the right place professionally and personally, that's far rarer. He gestured to the letters before her. Take a few days. Consider what success really means to you. All three options will launch an impressive career. The question is which life you want to build around that career. Walking back to her apartment through the gentle spring rain, Mia turned the decision over in her mind. Seattle offered prestige. Mayo promised unparalleled resources, but Boston held the promise of continuing the life she had unexpectedly begun to build before Oregon. At her apartment, she found an overnight package waiting, a thick manila envelope bearing the NutriLife logo. Inside was a prototype product box for something called First Spoon Infant Nutrition System. The packaging featured a silhouette that was unmistakably inspired by her, a woman cradling a child while holding a small spoon. Beneath the image was the tagline, "For the women who stayed hungry to feed hope." The words resonated with something deep within Mia. She remembered that night in the restaurant when she had only $5 in her purse, when hunger, both physical and emotional, had threatened to overwhelm her. When a stranger had seen her worth when she couldn't see it herself. A note in Jack's handwriting accompanied the prototype. Official launch next month. Wanted you to be the first to see what your inspiration created. The board approved a foundation component, 10 of profits fund nutrition support for single-parent families. Mia traced the silhouette with her fingertip, the significance of the gesture washing over her. This wasn't just a product, it was an acknowledgement of her impact, a permanent integration of her influence into the company Claire had helped build, into the legacy that would one day belong to Emily. She reached for her phone, then hesitated. This moment felt too significant for a text or even a call. Some responses needed to be delivered in person. 2 weeks later, Mia stood in the arrivals terminal at Boston Logan Airport, her carry-on bag clutched tightly. The fellowship had ended with honors, her decision made, but not yet shared with anyone. Dr. Harrison had smiled knowingly when she submitted her placement preference, offering a letter of recommendation that praised not just her clinical skills, but her wisdom in recognizing where she could make the greatest impact. Outside, the May sunshine cast a golden glow over the city she had come to call home. Mia hailed a taxi, giving the driver an address she had never actually visited: the Boston Children's Hospital administrative offices. She had scheduled this meeting before contacting Jack or Emily, needing to secure this final piece of her future before making any promises. The interview passed in a blur of professional discussion and facility tours. By afternoon, Mia emerged with a signed contract and a starting date 6 weeks in the future, enough time to settle back into Boston life before beginning her new role. Only then did she text Jack. "I'm back in Boston, accepted a position at Children's Hospital. Would love to see you and Emily when you're free." His response came within minutes. "Where are you? We'll come now." Mia gave him the address of a small cafe near the hospital, a quiet place where they could talk without interruption. She arrived early, selecting a corner table with a view of the street, her heart beating a nervous rhythm against her ribs. Through the window, she saw them approaching, Jack holding Emily's hand as they navigated the busy sidewalk. Emily had grown taller in the months since their last in-person visit at Christmas, her brown curls now long enough for a proper ponytail. Jack looked much the same, though perhaps there were a few more strands of silver at his temples, a few more lines around his eyes. Emily spotted her first, breaking free from Jack's grasp to race into the cafe. "Mia, you came back for real." She launched herself forward, colliding with Mia in a fierce hug that nearly toppled the chair. Jack followed more slowly, his expression a complex mixture of surprise, joy, and uncertainty. "We thought you were just visiting. For job interviews, maybe." Mia lifted Emily onto her lap, savoring the solid reality of the child in her arms after months of screen time connections. "Not visiting. I've accepted a position at Boston Children's. I start next month." "You're staying?" Emily's face lit with hope so pure it made Mia's chest ache. "I'm staying," she confirmed, looking up to meet Jack's gaze over Emily's head. Something shifted in his expression, a guarded wall coming down, revealing the depth of feeling he had kept carefully controlled during their months apart. "What about Seattle Mayo?" he asked quietly. "Last we talked, those were the frontrunners." "They made excellent offers," Mia Boyer acknowledged, "but Boston created a position that combines clinical work with nutrition research. I'll be consulting on cases involving complex allergies and nutritional needs, plus developing educational programs for families." Jack nodded slowly, understanding the professional rationale but clearly sensing there was more to her decision. "Can we have dinner at our house?" Emily interrupted, bouncing with excitement. "I want to show you my bean plants. They got so big, and one of them has flowers now." "I'd love that," Mia said, grateful for the child's uncomplicated joy. "If your dad doesn't mind." Jack's expression softened into a genuine smile. "I think that's an excellent idea." The Parker house looked exactly as Mia remembered, yet somehow different, as if she were seeing it through new eyes. The familiar living room with its comfortable furniture, the kitchen where they had prepared countless meals together. Emily's art decorating the refrigerator door, all unchanged, yet now laden with the weight of potential permanence rather than temporary connection. Emily insisted on giving Mia a tour, proudly showing off new additions and changes: her bean plants on the windowsill, a recently redecorated bedroom with space-themed wallpaper, a family photo wall that now included several pictures of Mia among the frames. Daddy put these up, Emily explained, pointing to the photos that featured Mia at the park baking cookies reading bedtime stories. He said it was so we wouldn't forget what you look like, but that's silly because I could never forget you. Mia glanced at Jack, who busied himself in the kitchen, pretending not to hear his daughter's innocent revelation. Dinner was a joyful affair, Emily dominating the conversation with a year's worth of stories she wanted to share in person. Jack remained somewhat quiet, contributing occasionally, but mostly watching the interaction between Mia and his daughter with thoughtful attention. When Emily finally exhausted herself and went upstairs to prepare for bed, an expectant silence fell between the adults. Jack poured 2 glasses of wine and led Mia to the back porch where the evening air carried the scent of early summer flowers. I saw the first spoon prototype, Mia said, breaking the silence. It's beautiful, Jack. The silhouette, the foundation component, all of it. He nodded, turning the wine glass in his hands. It's been the most successful pre-launch in company history. Retailers are placing orders double what we projected. The silhouette, he paused, choosing his words carefully. It was my way of keeping you connected to what we built together, even if you decided to stay in Oregon or take a position elsewhere. The implication lingered in the warm evening air. He had been preparing for the possibility that she might not return, might choose a different path entirely. I almost did, Mia admitted. The offers were exceptional, career-defining opportunities. What changed your mind? The question was gentle, without pressure or expectation. Mia considered her answer carefully. About 3 months ago, I was working with a little boy, advanced leukemia case, multiple complications. His single father had been sleeping in a chair beside his bed for weeks, barely eating, barely functioning. I brought him coffee one night during my rounds, and he looked up at me and said, I keep thinking if I just stay awake, if I just watch him closely enough, I can keep him safe. She paused, gathering her thoughts. It hit me then that success isn't just about prestigious hospitals or groundbreaking research. It's about being present for the moments that matter, for the people who matter. I realized I didn't want to build a life separate from the connections I'd found here. Jack's expression softened with understanding. The fellowship changed you. Not changed, Mia corrected gently. Clarified. I went to Oregon thinking my only goal was professional advancement. I came back knowing that a meaningful life requires balanced work that matters and people who matter. She met his gaze directly. I chose Boston because my work at Children's will be meaningful, and because you and Emily are here. The directness of her statement hung in the air between them. Jack set down his wine glass, turning to face her fully. When you left, he began, I told myself it was better not to define what we might become, that putting pressure on whatever was growing between us would only complicate your decision, that if what we felt was real, it would survive the separation. And did it? Mia asked softly. Jack's smile reached his eyes, crinkling the corners in a way that made her heart skip. Emily removed the last paper chain link this morning. She said we didn't need it anymore because counting days only matters when you're waiting for something to begin. Before Mia could respond, Emily's voice called from the upstairs window. Daddy, I need help with the star stickers on my ceiling. They shared a laugh. The moment paused, but not broken. Real life, Jack said with a wry smile. Always perfect timing. I wouldn't have it any other way, Mia replied honestly. Later, after Emily had finally fallen asleep surrounded by glow-in-the-dark stars, Jack and Mia sat in the living room. The comfortable silence of familiar companionship settled between them. There's something I need to show you, Jack said, retrieving a small box from his desk drawer. I've been waiting for the right moment. He handed her the box, not a jewelry case as she first thought, but a simple wooden container with a small brass latch. Inside lay a folded piece of paper well worn at the creases. What is this? Mia asked, unfolding the paper carefully. The night before you left for Oregon, Jack explained. I wrote this note and slipped it into your carry-on bag. I tucked it into the inside pocket, thinking you'd find it during your flight. Mia stared at the paper in her hands. I never found it. I realized that months later when you never mentioned it. By then it seemed too late, too complicated to bring up. The note was simple, just a few lines in Jack's precise handwriting. Some people are worth waiting for. Distance is just geography. What matters is where your heart finds home. Mia traced the words with her fingertip, emotion tightening her throat. I switched bags at the last minute. The airline had size restrictions. I never checked that pocket. Perhaps it's better this way, Jax said softly. The words needed this time to become true. Over the next few weeks, Mia found a small apartment not far from the Parker home and began setting up her life in Boston again. Her belongings arrived from Portland, each unpacked item, a confirmation of her decision to put down roots. Meanwhile, Nutri-Life was in full preparation mode for the first spoon launch, with Jack often working late to finalize the details. Emily became Mia's enthusiastic guide to reintegration, insisting they revisit all their favorite places. The ice cream shop with the rainbow sprinkles, the park with the tallest slide, the bookstore with the reading nook, shaped like a tree. Each excursion felt like reclaiming a piece of the life Mia had left behind, but with a new certainty about her place in it. One evening, Mia received a formal invitation to the first spoon product launch, scheduled for the following week at an elegant rooftop garden venue in downtown Boston. Despite her integral role in the product's development, she felt strangely nervous about attending such a high-profile corporate event, a world away from the hospital corridors and clinic rooms where she felt most comfortable. "You should wear that blue dress," Emily advised solemnly as they baked cookies in Jack's kitchen. "The one from the pictures of Daddy's birthday. It matches your eyes." Mia smiled, touched that the child remembered a dress she'd worn nearly a year ago. "You think so? It's not too casual for a fancy business event." Emily shook her head with the confident authority of a 5-year-old fashion consultant. "Daddy said you look like the ocean in that dress. The good kind of ocean, not the scary kind." Mia glanced at Jack, who was suddenly very interested in checking his phone, a faint flush coloring his neck. Did he now? The evening of the launch, Mia arrived at the venue in the blue dress, feeling both connected to and separate from the corporate world she was entering. Media representatives mingled with healthcare professionals and retail executives, all gathered to witness Nutrilife's most ambitious product line unveiling. She was surprised to find her name on the VIP list, with staff directing her to a reserved section near the presentation stage. The space had been transformed into a sophisticated showcase. White chairs arranged in neat rows, product displays artfully arranged in a long table featuring the complete first spoon line in its distinctive packaging. Jack was at the center of a group of executives looking completely in his element in a perfectly tailored suit. When he spotted Mia, he excused himself, immediately crossing the room to greet her. "You came," he said, relief evident in his voice. "I said I would," Mia replied, suddenly self-conscious among the corporate elite. "Though I'm not sure why I'm in the VIP section." Jack's expression turned serious. "Because none of this would exist without you. The concept, the nutritional approach, even the foundation component, all inspired by your vision." Before she could respond, his assistant appeared, signaling that the presentation was about to begin. Jack squeezed her hand briefly before returning to his position. The launch proceeded with corporate precision, marketing executives highlighting product features, research directors explaining nutritional benefits, sales teams outlining distribution strategies. Mia watched with pride as the silhouette logo was repeatedly featured, her indirect influence evident in every aspect of the presentation. Finally, Jack took the stage for the closing remarks. He spoke with passionate conviction about Nutrilife's mission, about the importance of nourishing children, not just physically, but emotionally. Then unexpectedly, he gestured toward Mia's section. The first spoon concept was born from a simple observation made by someone who understood that nutrition isn't just about ingredients. It's about dignity, about hope, about second chances. His eyes found hers across the crowded space. "This product line honors the women who stay hungry to feed hope, mothers, caregivers, and those who step into those roles when needed most." A ripple of applause moved through the audience as the presentation concluded. Guests began circulating among the product displays, sampling offerings, networking in small groups. Mia remained in her seat, processing the public acknowledgement. She had expected to feel out of place at this corporate event, yet Jack had seamlessly integrated her contribution without making her the center of attention, honoring her influence while respecting her preference for privacy. After completing his official hosting duties, Jack found her at the edge of the rooftop garden, gazing out at the Boston skyline as evening descended. "Too much?" he asked, joining her at the railing. "No," she answered honestly. "It was perfect. I'm just processing what all of this means." "What does it mean to you, Bao?" He asked, his tone gentle but direct. Mia considered the question carefully. It means something I created will help families I'll never meet. That ideas born from my experiences might make other people's journeys a little easier. She paused, turning to face him fully. And it means you saw value in who I am, not just what I could do for your company. Jack nodded, understanding the deeper significance. He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box. I had planned a different moment for this, he said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. But standing here, seeing what we've built together professionally and personally, I realize there's no perfect time except the one that feels right. He opened the box, revealing a delicate ring with a single, unassuming stone that caught the fading sunlight. This isn't about saving each other, he said quietly. I don't want to rescue you, Mia. I want to stay if you'll let me. The simplicity of his statement, free from grand declarations or elaborate promises, touched something deep within her. This wasn't a fairy tale proposal, but something far more valuable, an honest invitation to build a shared life, acknowledging both the beauty and challenges that would entail. Yes, she answered, the single word carrying absolute certainty. He slipped the ring onto her finger, the gesture understated yet profound. No passionate embrace followed, no dramatic kiss, just the quiet intertwining of fingers, the shared understanding that this commitment had been forming slowly, thoughtfully through challenge and separation and reunion. Emily helped me choose it, Jack admitted with a small smile. She said it should be pretty, but not too fancy because you need to wear it at the hospital without it getting caught on things. The thought of Emily participating in this decision, already considering the practical aspects of Mia's work, brought unexpected tears to her eyes. She thought of everything. She's been planning this longer than I have, I think, Jack said with a soft laugh. She started referring to you as Mommy Mia in her drawings months ago. The revelation struck Mia with unexpected force. She calls me that only in her art so far. She's been cautious about saying it aloud, waiting for some sign that it's allowed. Jack's expression grew serious. I hope that's not too much pressure. We can talk to her about appropriate names, boundaries. No, Mia interrupted gently. If she feels that connection, I'm honored. I would never try to replace Claire, but I would be proud to be another kind of mother to her. A week later, Jack made reservations at the same restaurant where they had first met. This time they arrived together, Emily between them, dressed in her favorite purple dress for what she called a special family dinner. The restaurant hadn't changed, the same soft lighting, polished wood tables, navy linen tablecloths, but everything else had. The hostess led them to a table near the window, not the exact one where Mia had once sat alone, but close enough to feel the symmetry of the moment. Jack pulled out chairs for both Mia and Emily, the three of them forming a complete circle around the table. Emily noticed the ring immediately, her observant eyes widening with delight. You're wearing it. Did you like it? Is it comfortable for doctor work? Mia extended her hand for Emily's inspection. It's perfect, just like you said it should be. So now you'll be my mommy. Mia, for real? Emily asked, the directness of childhood cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Jack tensed, slightly concerned about the weight of the question, but Mia answered without hesitation. I would be honored to be your mommy, Mia. Your first mommy will always be special and important, and I'll never try to replace her. But families can have lots of different shapes, and I would love to be part of yours. Emily considered this thoughtfully, then nodded with the solemn certainty of a 5-year-old. I know. Mommy is in heaven, but you're here. I need both. The simple wisdom of her statement left both adults momentarily speechless. Jack reached across the table, taking Mia's hand in his. Emily, not to be left out, placed her small hand on top of theirs, creating a three-way connection that felt both new and somehow ancient in its rightness. Over dessert, Emily retrieved a folded paper from her tiny purse, spreading it carefully on the table between their plates. It was a crayon drawing of a house with a yellow door, a smiling sun overhead, and 3 stick figures standing hand in hand. This is us, she explained, pointing to each figure in the turn. That's Daddy with his glasses, that's me with my purple shoes, and that's you with your yellow hair. She pointed to a table drawn inside the house. And that's Spaghetti because you like spaghetti. Mia's breath caught as she touched the drawing gently. When did you make this? At school? Emily said matter-of-factly. Teacher said to draw our favorite thing, and I picked us having dinner together. The simplicity of the child's perspective that their ordinary family dinners constituted her favorite thing struck Mia profoundly. In Emily's eyes, what mattered wasn't grand gestures or material possessions, but the simple act of being together around a table. You know, Jack said softly as they gathered their things to leave, there's something poetic about coming back here. Full circle. Mia looked around the restaurant, remembering the humiliation she'd felt that night, sitting alone with just $5 in her purse, reading the cruel text messages from someone who had never intended to show up. How close she had come to leaving, to disappearing into the night, with her dignity in tatters, and her hunger both physical and emotional unaddressed. I've been thinking about that night, she said, watching Emily skip ahead toward the door. How different everything would be if you hadn't been sitting at that table, if you hadn't seen me. Jack's expression grew thoughtful. I think the real miracle wasn't that I saw you. It's that you were brave enough to be seen, to show up with hope and stay even when it was painful. That kind of courage is rare. Emily returned to tug at both their hands, impatient to continue their evening. As they stepped outside, the spring night embraced them with warm air, scented with urban blossoms. The restaurant's lights spilled out onto the sidewalk, illuminating their path forward. Mia paused for a moment, looking back at the place where her life had changed course. That night, I thought the story was about waiting for someone who never came. But it wasn't, was it? It was about finding the someone I wasn't looking for. Jack smiled, understanding the deeper meaning behind her words. Emily, not following the adult conversation but sensing its importance, tugged again at their hands. Can we go home now? I want to show Mia where I think we should put her books. Home. The words settled around them, simple and profound. As they walked toward their car, their silhouettes merged briefly against the restaurant's warm glow. A man, a woman, and a child, three separate journeys converging into a shared path forward. Not a fairy tale ending, but something far more precious, a beginning built on seeing and being seen, on nourishment, given and received, on the courage to show up and the patience to remain, on the quiet certainty that sometimes the most important journeys don't lead us to the destinations we planned, but to the people we're meant to find.